joining me. I have a very special guest. His name is Brian. He's done amazing things. He's been in Star Trek. He's been a stunt double. He has a martial arts background like you wouldn't believe. And on top of that, he does all sorts of amazing other things like writing books. Who knew that someone could do this many things? So I'm really excited for you to get to know this amazing person. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Well, it's nice to be here, Sam. Thank you very much for having me on board.
So you obviously have done well-rounded things. I guess we should start with, you were living in Minnesota for quite some time. What brought you to Minnesota?
Black Magic, that woman with the cat and the broomstick, should have been a giveaway, but I missed that one. So no, it was business, and I stayed on because I met my lovely wife Helen, who is originally from Minnesota and is a fellow paranormal investigator too. And we met because I'd like to think it was a paranormal meeting in some respect. She was born in Minnesota in Duluth, and her parents moved to North Pole in Alaska when she was young, and she grew up there. And one day her mother answered the door to a traveling salesperson, and they were selling pictures. Really bizarre thing to sell in North Pole, Alaska. And she bought 2 pictures, and these pictures hung on Helen's wall for all her time in Alaska and throughout her teenage years. And eventually she took them with her when she grew up and settled down and got a house of her own. And fast forward many years, she met me, unfortunately for her. And we went out on a date, and second date, she says, look, I used to be one of the co-owners of the Mr. and Miss Universe show. We had the franchise for a while in the UK, and one of my my main science is exercise. I'm an exercise scientist, so that's what I am by trade. Not a flashy scientist, not one of these real scientists that are like an astrophysicist or something like that. But anyway, she said, would you mind just popping in and having a look at my regime and things like that, because she was heading towards a contest, very close to a contest actually. So I said certainly. So I walked into her house, and all of a sudden I'm transfixed by these 2 pictures, and she's talking away at me, and I'm obviously not listening. There's a light on, but there's no one in. And she said, what's the matter with those pictures? I said, I can't believe it. I said, why have you got my fishing village on your wall? She says, fishing village? No, they're both fantasy pictures. They're made up pictures, and my mother bought them from a traveling salesperson in Alaska. I said, no, that's Polperro, and that is Mevagissey in Cornwall, both in Cornwall. I've been to either one of them every other year as a child. My parents took me there, so it was kind of a paranormal kind of meeting, and that's how I ended up staying in Minnesota, because we met, and we started investigating more places and just having a load of fun. And eventually Helen decided, England's a bit older, there's more places to investigate over here. So here we came.
Well, no, that's amazing. That's very serendipitous about the pictures, and then seeing that and going, wow, that's where I've been going since I was a kid. That's amazing.
It was uncanny.
Sometimes life happens in a very strange way. So
oh, absolutely. She said, well, you better put a ring on it. I said, there and then, second day, I said, yes. So it's been downhill ever since. And I can't say anything more because she sat opposite me and she's armed and dangerous.
That's funny. Well, hi, Helen. Nice to meet you, kind of.
Sam says hi.
I'm sure eventually I'll meet you in person when you guys come
back. Oh, you will.
Visit, so that would be great. So from my sources, which you can't imagine, hi Adrian, thank you.
Hello, Adrian.
the help with this interview. You had a large role in Star Trek, but not.
I had a very small role, Sam. What happened was I was working on production. Yes, that was quite substantial. I was learning the trade. A close friend of mine, John Carrigan, and I knew a chap called Richard Arnold, who literally just passed away about a month ago, sadly, who was like Gene Roddenberry's adopted son, and he was the Star Trek consultant.
Wow.
And he worked at Paramount, and he said, I was a young filmmaker at the time. Many years ago, I got married for thought, well, I got married and 4 months later got a divorce and was broke. So I ended up becoming a stuntman. And because I was a martial artist, that's how I ended up throwing myself around. And it wasn't through any sort of great plan or anything like that or anything glamorous. It was just purely from being broke and needing the work. But I ended up on working in production because I was fascinated by cinematography and eventually became a cinematographer with the BBC, fast forward many years, but that's another story. Anyway, ended up on Star Trek. But while I was walking down the street back home from the gym one day, past Man's Chinese Theatre, I thought, where's John Wayne's star? So I'm having a look for John Wayne's star because I'm a great fan of the old John Wayne movies. And as I'm looking for the star, a car pulls up. This guy jumps out and said, look, I'm Andy Krager from Central Casting. I'm looking for someone just like you. And I thought, here we go, West Hollywood. Okay, what is it, pal? Do I have to hit you, punch you, or what's going on? And he said, no, 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 no. He said, here's a card. And then I thought, because he said, I want you in Star Trek. You're going to be perfect for the court official in this episode of Star Trek. And obviously I'm working on the show in production. So I thought, okay, this is a wind up from the team back at the studio on Melrose there. So I thought, okay. So I said, yeah. Dismissing him, took the card and walked into the studio that afternoon when I was due to start work. And first person I bumped into was Gene Roddenberry. I said, Gene, can I ask you a question? He said, you don't know anyone called Andy Krager, do you, from Central Casting? He said, oh yeah, he's casting the bulk of the supporting artists. He said, why? He said, well, he wants me to be the court official in the next episode. He said, fantastic, welcome aboard. So from there on, I drove the Enterprise in another episode. You know, we're tossing coins. Do you want to drive it? Do you want to do this? Yeah, whatever. So when the Enterprise is sort of grinding gears, that's me driving.
So the outfits that they're wearing on Star Trek, don't roll your eyes. You knew this question was coming. You knew it was coming because you know exactly who told me to ask it. So can you tell us?
Right. The gloves are off, Adrian.
Well, you did blame your gray hair on him.
I did.
So there is that. So can you tell us a little bit about the Star Trek uniform and how that came about exactly?
Yeah, yes, I can actually. There was a wonderful costumier called Bill Tice, and he designed the original uniforms back in the 60s. And he designed the uniforms for the movies and, of course, Next Generation. And I knew Bill quite well. Lovely, lovely man. And Gene said to me one day, he said, look, you're about the right build for what we're looking for on board the Enterprise. Would you mind helping Bill Tice finish off the uniforms and getting the right shape and cut and the variations? So I said, yeah, sure, happy to help. And I like Bill anyway. We always got on well, sat in the commissary at Paramount having lunch many times. And so next thing you know, I'm working away there, and he's literally building the uniform around me. It's not like it was a ready-made piece. It was being constructed on me. When all of a sudden one day, someone, I think might have been Susan, turned up with a Polaroid and said, oh, hold it there, we'll take a production snap or two. So it looks like I'm wearing a miniskirt, but I'm not. It's only because they hadn't wrapped the material for the legs around me yet and sewn the bloody things on. So that, and my wife over there is laughing because this is the thing she always loves to embarrass me about, and I've got no equal to sort of counter this. But that's all it was about. It was just purely they were building it around me. And if they got the leg pieces on about half an hour earlier, I would have saved a ton of embarrassment for the rest of my life.
Nah, that wouldn't have been nearly as fun if you
you're right.
that Polaroid taken.
No.
Yeah, it's way more fun this way. Yeah. I've also other things that I did hear about is you've been to some amazing parties. Like you've gotten the chance to go to some amazing places and meet some amazing people. Is there any that stand out that you want to tell us about, or that is it more like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas?
Oh no, it's very common knowledge actually, and this is just after I got back to the UK from working on my last stint on Star Trek. I sort of quit ahead of time because I had some work in the UK. on a horror movie called The Eye of Satan, which is going to be released soon on Severin Films. I'm giving you a plug there. And I know that because they're releasing a whole raft of some of these old video nasties that some of them were quite innovative because we have been acknowledged by the British Film Institute as being the pioneers of video cinematography back as far back as 1980 and 81. Using filters anyway, that's again another story. But in 87 I got back around, I think it was the end of August, beginning September, so something like that, end of August. And my good friend Cliff Twemlow, he's an author and composer and writer who wrote the book Tuxedo Warrior. And a tuxedo warrior is basically a gentleman nightclub bouncer. So he coined the phrase and wrote the book anyway. He picked me up one day from the airport and good to have you back. And he said, what's the matter, Cliff? He said, well, I'm not getting on so well with the wife. And, oh, sad really. So we're talking all the way home. I get back to my place. Cliff comes in and literally the phone starts ringing. And it's a guy called Tony Pike. And you can Google this guy, Tony Pike from Ibiza. He used to own a hotel called Pike's Hotel, which became an iconic hotel on this Balearic island in the Mediterranean. And he said, look, he's Australian. And he said, look, he said, guys, he said, can you get hold of Cliff? He said, Brian. I said, well, actually, he's with me now. He said, look, great. He said, look, he gave us a date. He said, can you come to Ibiza? Just get a flight. I'll pick you up from the airport. And it's a surprise. Want to have you in as my guest. As we went, well, back to the UK and I don't want to be here. And really, and Cliff went, I don't want to be with the wife. So let's go. So we arrived and Tony Pike picked us up from the airport as planned. And we're driving up to Pike's Hotel, which we knew very well. We'd spent quite some time there in 1984 filming a movie called Ibiza Connection, which is again soon to be released on DVD from Severin Films. And that was with a lady called Fiona Fullerton, who was the leading star with Roger Moore in A View to a Kill, the James Bond movie at the time. So she came straight from the Bond movie to our movie. And so anyway, we ended up at Pike's Hotel because we were asking, say, Tony, what's it about? What's the deal? But we didn't really care because it was just going to be a lovely weekend and a nice time out in the hotel. We get there and all of a sudden it dawned on us, it was Freddie Mercury from Queen, his 41st birthday party. And we loved Queen anyway. I mean, we were there at Live Aid. We were great fans, loved the music from Highlander, and it was just an amazing, we knew Pikes, it was just an amazing hedonistic experience in this bespoke hotel that is like nothing else on earth. I can't even begin to describe it. Half of the bar in the outside bar is in the pool with stools in there, so you can sit on just underwater. It's just got a cabana room for television viewing and video viewing. It is like the ultimate hedonistic experience, 5-star plus. You can sleep there and the roof opens up and you can see the stars at night. Phenomenal.
Wow.
Phenomenal. So yeah,
that must have been quite the surprise to show up and go, surprise!
Oh, yeah, and then of course Monday morning came and we're flying back to the UK and ended up and it's raining. Of course, what the heck? It's like back to reality.
Dun, dun, dun.
And back to the Eye of Satan. Whoa.
Well, that's one way to put it.
Well, that was the movie. That was the movie that we were heading back to. So, yeah, and it was a different movie. Let's put it that way. It was it was fun. It was interesting. I'm not sure the storyline quite held up, but. Yeah, it certainly had potential.
Because you have a background in video production, so you can say those things.
It wasn't my movie. I was just helping out on it and working in it, and it was fine. I was there with my friends, so I had a great time.
That's good. That's good. In Minnesota, did you work on short films or anything like that where you were here?
No, mostly on really, really boring education news that we used to transmit back to the UK. That was really the bulk of the business. It was just, yeah, what they call VNR's video news reports, anything that happened in the education circuit. Because when I was at the BBC, I was in the news department when it was real news. And so I stayed in that, and that's where you pay the bills from. But I found a good way to do it was with a good friend of mine, Tom Lapping, who invented this great piece of software called EduVision, based in Minnesota, and we could broadcast to multiple news channels live from various events and various influential people like the Secretary of State for Education, people like that. So we get some great, Bill Gates one time, I got him. So I got some interesting people under my belt.
You said you have a background in exercise science. Like, my background's in biology, so I feel you about being a...
I was never an academic. I hated academia. I was tick the box, get the qualification, then move on. But I ended up really coaching more people on the ground because I was a specialist and stayed with it in isometric exercise, which is why I've written so many books about isometric. I mean, 22 books about exercise, 21 on isometric exercise, and I think it's 31 or 32 books in total. Can you believe that?
Wow.
That shows you that's misspent time, isn't it? I mean, really, got nothing else to do, write a book. But yeah, so I ended up coaching people like John Paul Sigmarsson, the 4-time world's strongest man from Iceland. In fact, that was funny. We again, it was Cliff Twemlow and myself. I got a call one day from my agent in England, and she said, "Look, I've got a really bizarre request from the Icelandic National Theatre. They said that they want to produce a play about wrestling, but professional wrestling is banned in Iceland. Can we help?" Well, of course, I just said, yes, of course we can, without really thinking this through. And next thing you know, I'm buying a wrestling ring, putting it on a boat, shipping it over to Iceland. I'm in Iceland. So Cliff and I land in Iceland, and we ended. It was funny. We landed in a snowstorm, and these pilots, I don't know how they landed. It was a case of, did we land or were we shot down? We weren't quite sure. So we landed. They got in the terminal, and this is 1985, and this was at the time of the Cold War, and the airport there turned into a military base at night, and flights weren't very frequent anyway. So as it happened, the US Marine Corps took over patrols because they sort of shared it between different NATO countries. And when they found out that we were Brits, they took us under their wing, and we ended up in some of their part of their military base while we were waiting for our lift to come. The snowstorm just got so bad, it was delayed by about 4 or 5 hours. Well, by that time we had a few drinks, we were nice and relaxed and toasty warm and didn't really care what we were there for. But anyway, we were in Iceland. We were helping to produce this play for the Icelandic National Theatre called Trafford Tansy about wrestling, which is a fun play. One of the pop singers over here, a great singer called Toya Wilcox, wrote the play. No, Claire Luckham wrote the play, and Toya was in it. That's it. Let me get it right. Anyway, we helped to produce the play and reintroduce wrestling into Iceland because the government changed the law to allow it to happen. But during the course of that, again, me saying yes without really know what I'm saying yes to, they said, would you do a demonstration wrestling match with our Icelandic sporting champion? I went, yeah, what the heck? Well, of course, this is John Paul Sigmarsson. He'd already won the World's Strongest Man contest. And I see this guy walking in, he's huge, and I'm going, no. When he's throwing me, he literally can pick me up in one hand and throw me across the ring, and Cliff's there because we drew straws, and it was me that went in the ring with him. And so I'm there with my Game of Death Bruce Lee outfit. I said, John, thinking on my feet here, said, I'll teach you some. Let's do martial art. Let's do some. And he just went, yes, in his broken English. So I throw a few kicks, and we tried it because it's being filmed for local television. It was just a fun match.
Right.
Well, it turns out that he was a Goju karate guy as well. So then he kicks me, and I'm moving across the ring and thinking, oh, okay, I give up. But we became firm friends after that, and then we used to go to the Highland Games together and stuff like that. So yeah, what a great experience.
That's amazing. The fact that you all came about because you said yes to something that you didn't.
Oh, I just say yes. Yeah. Interestingly enough, he picked us up, John Paul and a guy called Hilte Arnesen, who I'm still friends with on Facebook. Again, one of the great strongmen of all time. They picked us up one morning to go to the gym. And we had an apartment next to a lake in the center of Reykjavik called, the lake's called the Tjarnagata. And this apartment had always been it felt strange. Anyway, John Paul walks in and he goes, "Hello, good morning," in his broken English. And I said, "Oh, yeah, we'll be out." And he said, "Oh," and he just stops and went, "What's the matter?" He went, and he paused, and it seemed like a long time. He said, "This place feels very strange." He said, "I will wait in the car." Anyway, as it happened, that same night, we started having poltergeist activity.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of crazy, but a candlestick fell over, then a shirt was flown across the room, flew across the room. It's like, oh my God. Cliff and I, who were living there, we ended up taking it so much for granted. This is bizarre that one night Cliff and I were sharing a room, and he's got one bed on one side, I got a bed on the other side. And he shouts over, he said, "Brian, are you awake?" I said, "Yeah, Cliff, why?" He said, "Look," he said, "I think your shirt's hovering at the end of your bed." And my shirt, I looked up, I could see my shirt. Next thing, it flew across the room. And I just shouted, I said, "It's the poltergeist, isn't it, Cliff?" He went, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, night, God bless." I went, "Night." We just turned up. And I'm sure that if that poltergeist was like anything like Sully out of Monsters, Inc., it was like, shit, I just threw a shirt across the room. That's it. Good night.
I love the
But
fact
that's how blasé we were about it by that time.
They failed at their job.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely failed. Go for retraining. Scare tactics 101.
Tactics, that's exactly right.
I should have given it a name. Never gave it a name. Maybe that's what it was mad about. Who knows?
It wanted to have a name.
I want a name.
The last question I have is, do you have any advice for, in general, like you've done so much and you kind of had these serendipitous like events happen and they've led you to where you are now. Do you have any advice for any viewers out there?
I like the philosophy of Bruce Lee. Water doesn't flow uphill. It takes the path of least resistance. And it could be argued that if you're working towards a goal and you're meeting challenges, that's one thing. But when you're looking at the flow of life and where it's taking you, that's another thing. Maybe go with the flow sometimes and actually take advantage of the opportunities that are around you. Are you taking the full advantage of what is in front of you? Sometimes it just takes a different perspective. And sometimes saying yes and looking before you leap, the James T. Kirk approach to things, where you say yes to the unknown and then figure it out from there. Maybe that's not such a bad way ahead. Maybe it just opens more doors and opens more avenues of opportunity.
That's some good advice. I think more people should probably listen to that. So
the other advice I would give you is don't get married so many times and don't get divorced so many times, and you'll be a lot better off than I am.
Helen's sitting there going,
"Oh no, I've met the right one." When you meet the right person, it's fantastic. Just yeah. It's true. I have. We've got a great relationship, and we share a lot of wonderful things in common. Must admit, I've never been happy. We've got a great soulmate, and we do a lot together. We write books together. We collaborate on things, and it's just wonderful.
Good. Your last name is Sterling Vete, correct?
Sterling Vete. It's
Vete.
kind of weird. It sounds very pretentious, doesn't it? Sterling Vete. There you go.
Just checking, because if I don't ask, I'll get it wrong.
Oh no. Well, most people. Actually, here's a funny story. This is true. One year, my birthday, a lot of friends around. My mother, she must be about 85 at the time, little old lady, butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. And she gives me a birthday card. She says, "Look, there's your birthday card, son." I said, "Thank you, Mum. That's really kind." She says, "I'm sorry I couldn't get one with the word bastard on, but that'll have to do." That's the sense of humor. So, how's your name spelt? Well, it begins with B and ends with a D, but the bit in between I can't say.
Well, you can, but I'm not.
You can, but beep.
Thank you for joining us. You've done some amazing stuff. I'm really glad that you were able to make some time all the way across the ocean to do this interview. So thank you. I appreciate it.
It's been a real pleasure, Sam, and I look forward to coming back again soon if we have anything interesting to report, which I hope we will. But thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, viewers. This has been Sam Hedden with producer Andy Watson, and now you know Brian Sterling Vete.